Because of the fact that this panel is streaming online, I'm going to give a floor to the moderator, Mr. Richard Kadlčák from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Kadlčák, floor is yours.
So good afternoon to everyone. My name is Richard Kadlčák. I'm from Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Special Envoy for Cyberspace and Director of Cybersecurity Department. It's my pleasure to be here today. First of all, I would like to thank organizers of CyberCon conference, and especially the first day, which is international one. And it's my honor to start the block concerning the protective healthcare sector from cyber harm. I would like to start with two technical points. First one, I would like to point out that this panel is also streamed online for international audience. Second, we very welcome your questions. If you would like to ask, please do it through the online Sleep.do platform. That's just technical points, and let me start with the topic, which is very important one, and it's protection of healthcare sector. My role here is a little easier because I have just to follow up what the director of NUKIP, Mr. Karel Řehka, said already in a keynote speech in the beginning. That's the sector, healthcare sector, is really under big pressure. We have evidenced very serious attacks against hospitals, even here in Brno, but not only in Brno, but in the Czech Republic, and not only in the Czech Republic, but also in other countries like France, Ireland, Spain, Thailand, and so on. So that's the reason we are here to discuss about this important issue. I would like to first introduce panelists, or ask panelists to introduce themselves, to say a couple of words, 1-2 sentences, briefly about which entities you represent, and explain what was motivated you to participate in this project, if I can.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Katerina and Magnna, and I am in charge of government affairs in Microsoft, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Hungary. And obviously, cybersecurity is our key topic, which we are following for already many years. And I'm really delighted to be here today because this project, it's very important. It's something where cybersecurity is meeting healthcare sector. And to be honest, I could not wish for a better opportunity to come back to Brno. I was born here. Brno is my hometown. And I was coming here to Scala many years ago to watch movies. So at that time, I would not have imagined that I will come back for a cybersecurity conference. So cybersecurity, very important topic.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Petr Novotný. I'm from National Cyber and Information Security Agency. I work as the Director of Cybersecurity Policies Department here in Brno, in National Cybersecurity Center. I'm also from Brno. I was born here, so it's my hometown as well, and I'm really happy to be here, part of the panel. And I can only reinforce what was said. Cybersecurity of healthcare sector is one of the top priorities for NUKIP for some time. And we experienced multiple attacks here in Czech Republic. I think the most serious one was here in Brno against one of the largest hospitals in Czech Republic. NUKIP was, I would say, very active in response to the attack. And we know there is room for improvement in healthcare sector. So participation in this project is just the next logical step, I would say, for us as an agency.
Good afternoon, my name is Klara Jordan. I'm the Chief Public Policy Officer at the Cyber Peace Institute. I'm not from Brno, but I'm from Slovakia, so I hope it counts at least a little bit. We are very pleased to be here as a civil society actor on the stage. The Cyber Peace Institute is a Geneva-based NGO, and we are promoting the interests of the victims in this whole cybersecurity conversation and ensuring that we have cyberspace where we have peace, where we can all enjoy our rights. I would like to thank the Czech government for inviting a civil society to the table. I really commend the government and its leadership for walking the talk of multi-stakeholderism and involving the voices of the civil society in this conversation. Thank you.
So thank you very much, all speakers. We would like to start with two videos to show you first some point of view of COVID from the human point of view, from the point of view of concrete people. First video will be one of Microsoft. It was already from 2018, so it shows that the topic we discussed today, it didn't start with COVID. It was even before COVID, just reinforced the discussion about it. Second video is video of Cyber Peace Institute. It's a new one. It's from 2021, and it is exactly about pandemic. So I would like to ask for those two videos.
Я думаю, что наша страна находится в стадии войны, поэтому мы можем много что рассказать общественности, мировой общественности и показать все-таки лицо кибервойны.
A global cyber attack.
We've never seen anything on this scale.
It can travel from computer to computer.
Hospitals paralyzed, computers had shut down.
WannaCry is different.
I think WannaCry is a great example of how nation states are impacting businesses and ultimately individuals as well.
We had over 19,000 appointments cancelled, and those are people who are worried about their cancer appointment or their appointment for an operation.
I was diagnosed with a heart murmur, which was the start of the hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It's a very serious surgery. I wanted my life back. After I'd had my chest shaved at 6 o'clock in the morning, the doctor looked very, not upset, but concerned, shall we say, and he said, "We've been hacked. All our systems are down across the whole hospital."
He telephoned me, obviously, and said, "It's not going to happen," and he was in shock.
Suddenly we discovered that a bit of our society, a bit of our social infrastructure could be switched off. WannaCry, it was a kind of a warning shot.
The malware crippled computers across Ukraine.
Perhaps the most sophisticated in a series of attacks, taking control of computers and demanding digital ransom. The list of companies impacted around the world is growing.
I think what NotPetya represents is not just the evolution of the attack in terms of the methodologies involved, but also the evolution of intent.
Ну, чтобы понимать, что за 2,5 часа, 10 часов утра, пол Украины уже было поражено.
We have TV stations who've been on the air when their computers just died.
You cannot receive cash in ATM machine because ATMs also doesn't work. It was a real shock for Kyiv citizens.
75% of my clients were affected by Petr. Some companies were destroyed totally. They didn't understand why they're losing their job. Everybody is just thinking, we hope this will never happen again, but I'm afraid this will happen again.
One of the objectives in the cyber attacks we face is disruption. To stop operating, to create significant burden to the life of citizens, governments, businesses, where the cost of doing business or recovering is extremely high.
In 2017, a lot was the same. Cyber attacks were happening, they were affecting organisations. What changed was the impact on our lives.
It was the most awful time because I didn't know what was going to happen now.
Stop and think about what it means in real terms to real people. It isn't a machine you're affecting, and if it is, maybe that machine's keeping somebody alive.
Ultimately, all of us pay the price when it comes to nations in particular who are attacking each other by using us as the means. What are we doing to come together? If we don't have this conversation now, when it happens and we all retreat behind walls, that is when this becomes a catastrophic event globally. And we need to do everything we can to at least talk about these issues before it happens.
So thank you. Now we can continue in our discussion. I would like to structure the discussion in a way that first I would like to ask speakers about general approach to the healthcare protection, our topic. Then I would like to pay attention to especially the project we have been starting today. So first I would like to start with Klara from Cyber Peace Institute, which has been very active in thematic area. So that's logical because Institute was only started its operations a couple of months before this pandemic started, and it's a really important topic in general. So I would like to ask Klara, how has the work evolved for you with this framework in mind?
Thank you for that question. So the Cyber Peace Institute, just very briefly to introduce you to our work, we have 4 main streams of work, which is assistance, analysis, advancement, and foresight. And really the 3 main pillars are assistance, analysis, and advancement. And that's how we structure the work around the healthcare sector. So our work started in 2020 when the pandemic has hit, where we issued a call to governments. And we issued this call to government with 50 world leaders, Nobel Prize laureates, heads of states, key industry leaders, where we really called on the governments to immediately stop any attacks on the healthcare sector and to ensure that no attacks are launched from their territory and they hold the perpetrators accountable for these attacks. We really recalled the government's responsibility to protect its citizens and this critical sector. After we've issued this call on government, we started a serious analytical work to actually look into what does cyber attacks on healthcare mean in terms of the human cost, the societal cost, the impact on the victims. We know that in general in cybersecurity, oftentimes we talk about financial cost, we talk about technical mitigation, but we really wanted to expose the fact that I think we all understand that cyber attacks on the healthcare sector are actually cyber attacks on people and their lives. So we've conducted quite extensive analytical work. We have cyber analysts, forensic analysts who've really looked into it. And we saw a very, very worrying trends. And we issued an analytical report that I recommend you consult in March of this year. And in this analytical report, we actually documented what we've seen, how many disruptive attacks, what they meant, what were the delays, what were the shortcomings of different communities, where we can do more as a community to protect the healthcare sector. We also realized a couple of things. We realized that we don't have data available and necessary on the impact of cyber attacks, that we don't really track or share the data on the harm caused to individuals. Again, we understand the threat, we understand the threat vector, we understand the tools, but we do not understand what is the harm and impact, which is something we think it's key in informed policy making, in really generating sense of urgency in the community in protecting this critical sector. And after we've done this strategic report, we continued to track these attacks globally. And in October this year, we will launch a platform called Cyber Incident Tracer for healthcare sector, where we really look at, what was the disruption caused? What was the disruption and the human impact of the disruption? So we've really focused on taking the work from strategic levels and looking at the responsibilities of the governments and different actors, to issuing a report that for the first time have shown the extent of the problem, to now tracking the specific incidents. What we've also done, we launched quite a unique project called Cyber for Healthcare, where we matched the expertise that's available in the private sector with those healthcare institutions that needed help. We actually realized that there's quite a lot of healthcare providers globally that don't have capacity or capability to do anything in the midst of pandemic. And we've also seen that the private sector, the industry is willing to help, that they're willing to contribute their time, their resources, and their expertise to protect the sector. So we've created a matchmaking service where we've helped these victims. And this was very important for our work because, again, we worked closely with victims. We understood their problems, we've gathered the information, their concerns, and we are infusing that information in our advocacy work, in rallying together community, in recalling the rules and the norms that exist and apply in this space, and we are recalling what is the responsibilities of different actors in this space. We've done this in collaboration with different partners from industry, academia, and research community. As a not-for-profit organization and as an NGO, we rely on this community engagement. And so even going forward, a lot of our work really around analyzing the incidents and the societal harm will count on and will rely on a collaboration with partners. I can talk about some of the findings perhaps later, but I wanted to outline at the high level the work the Institute has done. Thank you.
Thank you, Klara, very much. Peter, I would like to ask, NUKIP is by no doubt one of the key institutions in the Czech Republic concerning the cyber security. So my question is, how has you reacted during the attacks on health sector in the Czech Republic, and what was the cooperation with others?
When it comes to the incidents themselves, our reaction is that we have a CERT team, so we provide them with the assistance, our expertise, and support. Even we can provide support on site if it's necessary. That's the immediate reaction to those cyber attacks, especially ransomware. When it comes to long-term response, I would say NUKIP has various services we are offering to our constituency, not only to healthcare sector. I can mention, for example, consultations or materials that are provided to them as a support, penetration testing, and so on. We were also tasked to complete the audits, let's say, of the hospitals, those that are regulated by our Cybersecurity Act. So we are more aware of the level of their cybersecurity and what can be improved. And I would like to point out one activity that is coming in recent weeks, and that's non-technical tabletop exercise. That's non-technical exercise, so it's not for administrators or IT workers. They are important as well, that technical level, but this exercise will be dedicated to, let's say, management of the hospitals. Because I would say that we need to shift the paradigm a little bit, because cybersecurity is not an issue of IT department, or it's not only a technical issue. Maybe it's in the core, but without the leadership and top management that is aware that cybersecurity is their issue as well, and they have certain role, it will not get better. And the exercise is a service for them, so they can actually go through the incident in a safe environment. They can gain some experience, so in case something happens in real life, they are more ready, I would say. So we are really looking forward to that, and it's I would say, like, a special service that we as an agency provide to constituency, and especially for healthcare sector.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I cannot agree more with your statement that it's not only technical, that it's really necessary to have a really wide cooperation of all institutions involved, and to find the common approach. Now I have the last speaker, Katerina. What is the private sector role in all of this? What is the impact of the global pandemic on global IT product and services provider? What has changed in the way you are perceived to the cybersecurity approach now?
Well, you have seen the example of the WannaCry just some minutes ago, and you have seen the urgency of the situation. Simply, we are living in the 21st century. More and more human activities are moving online. And this is nothing new. This trend has been here already for some time, but given the situation in the past 2 years, when we had the pandemics, thousands of employees of institutions, companies, organizations, they had to move to remote working just literally over the night. And the cybercrime is not sleeping. So at the same time, we evidenced proliferation of the cybercrime. Actually, cybercrime is very good business. Imagine a big company which is really innovative, which is flexible, ready to do almost anything, and offering many services. This is the cybercrime. And this is also something not new. This was here for decades. But what we have seen in the past 2 years, that the cybercriminals, they adjusted the strategy. They were using the COVID-19 topics and themes. They were using people fear and confusion. So they were greatly benefiting from that. And we also see that there were certain targeted organizations, like, for example, NGOs or critical infrastructure, namely hospitals, healthcare organizations. We already could hear about the examples which were mentioned here in Czech Republic, in Brno or Benešov, but examples in Paris, in Scandinavia, in Asia, in US, so simply worldwide. And you all know very well the statistics, so I'm not going into much detail into this, but there is one thing which I would like to mention. The thing what was happening during the COVID, using the COVID teams, it really diminished the trust in the society. So it led to distrust and confusion of people and the society. And imagine trust is one of the fundamental values of the society. So the question is how we can gain it back, how we can introduce trust back to the society. And we have an answer. The answer is multi-stakeholder involvement, multi-stakeholder diplomacy. This is something which is very much in line with what Microsoft is believing in, what Microsoft has been doing already for years. Let me mention, for example, the Paris Call. The Paris Call for Trust and Security in Cyberspace is the biggest multi-stakeholder platform. It has more than 1,200 participants from public, private sector, NGOs, academia, simply really like a worldwide. They have just launched 6 working groups. So it's definitely a movement to be mentioned, and many governments, including private sector and Microsoft, they have been part of this movement. But there are also other important movements. You could see that ICRC is advocating existence of dedicated norm which would protect cyber or healthcare in cybersecurity against the cyber attacks. You could see that the governments, they had their lessons learned. They implemented steps, they took the lessons from the cyber attacks, they improved their resilience, and they were working on the incident response as well. And another important activity is coming from the Cyber Peace Institute. They were working on numerous reports concerning the latest trends, what was already mentioned here. So you see that the international community is very much active, and Microsoft is part of that. If we can move to the next slide. Yes, and I would like to say, let's stay in touch. So here are the contacts for the people in the company who are driving the project. I am here locally, but I have also colleagues, Nemanja Mališević and Kaja Ciglic, which are representing the region, and they are really driving this project regionally. And, you know, just to conclude, on behalf of Microsoft, I can say that we are really looking forward to this joint journey with NUKIP, with the Czech Republic, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the Cyber Peace Institute to be part of this important project.
So thank you, Katerina, very much. And I think that the key word I heard in your presentation was trust. Trust is something we would like to offer today here, and we would like to work on. As Petr already said, as for cyber attacks against healthcare sector, it's definitely not the question for just one part of our society. It's really a very general problem, and we in Ministry of Foreign Affairs have been very strongly involved in it, because it's not problem of the Czech Republic, it's problem of all other countries, so we can keep together and we have to build our trust. At the beginning, it was the Czech Republic who was one of the countries who opened this topic in international level. We mentioned it in the meetings of United Nations a couple of times. Our general logic was clear. We respect that any country can have specific definition of critical infrastructure, specific definition which hospitals or which health sector is involved and in which way is involved in critical infrastructure. But everybody knows very well what it is, cyber attacks against hospitals. And this is the activity we should politically agree that it's not forbidden anymore. We prepared a paper together with Australia, Japan, United States, Estonia, and Kazakhstan. And we did open discussion during two main groups, working groups within United Nations, which are trying to find some way how stabilize the cyberspace if it is possible. One group is open-ended working group, all countries are member. Second is group of government expert, but this is more expert group of 25 countries. Both group reported this summer, and both group reflected this critical situation concerning the health sector. That was just the first step. Then we realized that it's necessary to discuss it in a wider scope, and we try to cooperate in a, as was mentioned, multi-stakeholder approach, and to involve others in this process. And it's really my honor that I can present to you today the project we prepared together as a Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Czech Republic, NUKIP as a key cybersecurity institution in the Czech Republic, Microsoft as the private company, and Cyber Peace Institute as an NGO, that we prepared together the project of series of seminars discussing this very important topic. And today we have just launched the first seminar, and we would like to continue. The Czech Republic is prepared to prepare event on the margin of UN meetings in December. I hope that COVID situation allow us to do it this way in physical. But now we are in the we just start all this initiative. So I would like to kindly ask my colleagues if they can say a couple of words concerning this project and the approach to this project. And if I can again start with Klara on the right.
Thank you. Yes, so you know, multi-stakeholderism is a little bit like your family. We all, are together, we have to deal together. We may not agree what recipe for the Christmas potato salad we will use, but we know we want to have a salad and we know we want to get together. So this is what we're trying to do in this project. We all have different stakes. We all have different point of view. We all have different experiences, but we all agree that there is a wealth of knowledge, that there is a wealth of expertise that we have the capacity to bring together. And from our conversations, we can distill recommendations that other governments and stakeholders can take on board to move this conversation. So, whatever conversation you're hearing at the UN and in different fora, we always say, well, we should come together to do something. So, here under the leadership of the Czech Republic, we are getting together, and they've invited some of the relevant stakeholders to lead. But what we will do over the course of the next year, we will gather different groups of international experts. We will sit together in 6 or 7, I never get the number right, thematic workshops, where we discuss the legal measures, operational measures, technical measures. We will talk about the best practices in capacity building. We will discuss really the practitioner's perspective, and the objective is to gather these very diverse groups and come together to create a set of recommendations to move the conversation forward. So from our perspective, this is a very important step in operationalizing a lot of our commitments we make as a community in different places. So again, this is a year-long project. If you'd like to get involved, please let us know. It'll be an expert-level workshops. And again, there'll be 7 of them over the course of the year. And next summer, we are hoping to produce a compendium to then share with governments around the world to move the conversation forward.
Thank you. So, Petr?
As I mentioned in the beginning, it's a logical step for us. We really appreciate the diversity of those that are participating in the project, especially that if you consider that we have large private company, then we have the NGO that's more focused on human-centric approach, and then it's us. We are national authority and a regulator, so all of us we are really interested in raising the bar, but everyone is looking at it in a little bit different point of view, which I think is a good thing. That's needed, the complex approach. And we can see the same in the workshops, because the people that will meet in the workshops are not just ICT experts or cybersecurity experts. It will be people with a diplomacy background, with international law background, or practitioners, and that's really valuable. So we hope that the outcome will be tangible, that it will be something that will be useful for those that really want to increase the cybersecurity. They can grab the outcome and use it. We are also happy to bring those people together, and it's not the primary goal, but maybe create some network so they can know each other, they can reach each other even outside of the project, or if the project is done, so they can do something good. So that's our perspective.
Thank you, Peter, and Katerina, please.
And we in Microsoft, we always look where we can make positive impact in the society. Prior to this project, we had, another project, for example, with Canadian government about the interference in elections. It was very successful. In the end, there was also produced compendiums of recommendations. And then when we were thinking what to do next, and we learned about this possibility in cybersecurity, we immediately jump on that. Yeah, because it's very important. And what would be our contribution? We are a global company, so we have very rich experience from different countries, and maybe you don't know that, but we have a digital crime unit. It's a unit of experts which are based worldwide, and all of them are Microsoft employees. They are fighting with the cybercrime, helping the law enforcement agencies in the countries to get the criminals in front of the court. So we are bringing this workforce, these very smart people, to help with this project and participate.
Thank you very much. I would like to join on the point of view of Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I already said a couple of words, but we really see the development in international fora. We see a strong development when, in a way, where technical things and technical discussion and meetings concerning the new standards, new norms, meetings which were very technical in the past, are more and more political, and we see more and more geopolitics behind. So we are much more perceivable now and looking at the situation, and we would like to be ready to react on this in this development. And what is needed, it's really expertise, to share expertise together, because it's not more about. In the past, I think it was more divided discussion. There were discussions about international stability and politics. There were technical discussions. Now it's really all together, and we need to be really, as a Western countries, especially, we need to be really keep together and to be ready to prepare that. Even in very often we are discussing about multilateralism, about the current system of multilateralism, but we see that if there is some possibility to change things, it will not be in political meetings, it will be in technical meetings, and it's necessary to be prepared for it. So that's the intention of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs behind this event, and as I said a couple of times, I'm really honored that we can be together in this group, sharing private sector, NGOs, state institutions to work on it together. So that's just my add to the reasons why we decided to start this initiative. I am happy that we received already a couple of questions. So I would like to start with questions from public. The first one is, what are we going to do about hospitals using out-of-the-date software and systems, for example, Win7, which is support ended in 2020, or even longer and not supported once? So that's the first questions from the public. I would like maybe ask Peter first.
Yes, that's the reality. So there is something we can do right away to make sure that those outdated systems will be more protected, because we cannot just throw them away because they are in devices that are really important to save people's lives or keep us healthy, let's say. So we need to cope with them for a little longer. But the next step is to make sure that those products are secure by design. And it will be a larger issue in future because we will have medical IoTs, and it will be even worse than if we don't do something about it. So the issue is to set standards. I'm not saying the formal one, but that the machines and the devices that are rolled out are secure by design, that they are supported through the life cycle, that the hospitals have the agreements with the suppliers that this is provided, this is a run for a long time. So it will not happen immediately. But I think we took the first step as NUKIP, and we just need to persist, because some things can change faster, the others it will take a longer time, even when this issue is out of media attention, but we have to keep pushing.
Thank you, Peter, very much. I agree. I would like to add that, of course, to have updated systems is first thing everybody should do. But the problem is really complex in general, and it's not only about those weaknesses which are known. We are discussing zero-day vulnerabilities. We are discussing that those attacks are very often organized by a huge number of people. There are estimates about thousands of people, and so on. So that's the reason we need to cooperate together, and we need to find some general approach. Katerina,
I will maybe also comment on that. So we work very closely with the hospitals, and of course we would invite them to use the latest software. But maybe one comment I wanted to make, that I mentioned the Paris call, and imagine that the hospitals are very much aware and they are very much interested in cybersecurity. So in total, in last year, we had the Paris call had about 60 new signatories. And 20 of these 60 in healthcare were hospitals from Czech Republic and Slovakia, which were really interested to join the community, work on in the work groups, and attend the workshops. So I believe that there is a movement behind, and it will improve.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's the context. I would like to have another question from the public. How much responsibility lies on companies producing the software with regards to fatal vulnerabilities that lead to attacks mentioned in the videos? So maybe, Katerina, if you would like
Look,
to...
of course, the cyber criminals, they never sleep. Yeah? They are always here, always present, and they are inventing new ways how to cause the cyber attacks and even bigger cyber harms. And of course that they are cyber attacks which cause patches, they find the ways how to get into the systems. It's happening. I can't say that it's not. And when there is something like that happening, we react very fast to mitigate this harm. So we are here, we are ready, and following the trends.
And if I may just jump very quickly in, we oftentimes talk about responsible behavior in cyberspace only in the context of the state. But it's a shared responsibility, and I think we've heard that many times. But for me, what it really means that every single actor in the chain, in the ecosystem, has to have that dedication, and the responsibility lies on the governments to resource them. The responsibility lies on those who do the jobs to do their job. The responsibility lies really on the whole community. The one thing I want to highlight, as we know, the issue with many sectors is that the digitization was very ambitious and was very quick. However, our ambitions to secure what we're trying to digitize were not really matched with the pace of. So technology is one part, but I think it's unrealistic to think that we will defend our way out of this issue. I think it's really unrealistic to think that every hospital in every city will be able to, withstand this constant assault. It does not mean that they do not have a responsibility to do maximum to protect their system. However, I really think that where we really have to now focus on efforts is the role of diplomacy, because I think that practical diplomacy, where we can assure that we hold the perpetrators accountable, that victims have judicial redress, that we know, that there is criminal investigations in these cases. That is where we have to focus at least as much attention as we are focusing on securing technology. But again, for me, that responsible behavior of cyberspace is a shared responsibility, and we should not forget that.
Thank you very much, Klara. I would add that we could distinguish between the cyber attacks where some state actor is behind, which is something more and more really serious problem, and then the criminal groups and cyber criminality, which is also a big problem. As Katerina already said, it's a big business. Its turnover in this business is estimated to be bigger than a business in drug dealers and so on. So it's really a question of big money, but doesn't matter which part of cyber crime we are talking. It is something we need to elaborate together and to try to find way how to challenge it. Next question from the public is directed to UKIP again, Peter. In order to be working together to save the environment, we need to share threats among public and private sector. What are the plans of UKIP in this area?
Public-private cooperation?
Yes.
I think it was highlighted right in the beginning by our director that that's something we want to work on a closer relationship with the private companies. Of course, it have its limits because we can share all the information, but I think that right now the information sharing on technical level is happening between our CERT and their respective counterparts in private sector. So that's something that's in progress and that's working quite well, I would say. And then we would like to have more structured cooperation on the non-technical level. So that's our goal, and that's something we would like to focus on a little bit more. And it goes also to, let's say, vendors, because I will maybe reply a little bit to the question that was before about the suppliers in the supply chain security, and there's the issue of trust. That we need to make sure that the suppliers, they follow the best practice, they are repairing the vulnerabilities in time, and they operate in a trustworthy environment, and they are trustworthy for the hospitals and those that are using their devices. So that's also the issue for us as well.
Thank you, Peter. I can add that even this event is a part of this effort for public-private partnership and cooperation. Next question from the public is a general one. What is, in your opinion, the ideal approach to securing non-centralized healthcare sector, such as the one in the Czech Republic? So I would like to ask probably all of you to answer. My point is that it's about mainly cooperation, that it's impossible to find a way easily to do it. And that's the reason, again, of our event. But if I can ask Klara?
Yeah, I mean, if this is a specific question to the Czech ecosystem, it's hard for me to respond. But I would really say that, I think many governments are now having that very comprehensive approach to securing the system, right? I mean, information sharing is one thing, but if you have no capacity to deal with the information you are shared, then the information sharing is for nothing. So there's information sharing, there's capacity building, there's exercises. I think there are a lot of countries are looking at regulating the best practices. They are looking at supply chain security. They are looking at what requirements we should put on suppliers. You see the ETSI standards around IoT in the UK. So I think we are really trying to understand, what is sort of the full cycle and the full circle we have to go. And I'll also say one thing that I've seen from my working with different governments globally, which is, a lot of times we focus on sort of securing the domestic, IT and the infrastructure, which is super important. And then we think that the cyber diplomacy is something completely apart. We think it's some esoteric conversation in the UN about principles and ideals. But just don't forget that what is discussed there will have immediate and direct repercussions in what's happening to our ICT infrastructure. So we always say, whole of the approach government, let's collaborate. But even within individual countries, there has to be better collaboration between the stakeholders. Because again, it can't be disconnected the diplomatic efforts that are oftentimes sort of forgotten or really, you know, I've worked in the private sector, I work with a lot of technical experts, they think it's something completely apart, but it is not. So really to understand that if ITU is talking about a technical standard, you know, 10 years down the road, it will impact how we can secure around, you know, our ICTs. If a government representative or a government head of state makes a statement at the UN that they will hold someone accountable, that actually can make a real difference into what the defenders will have to deal at the domestic level. So I think, you know, whether it's Czech Republic or any other country, you know, even within the government, that common understanding that we are here to protect a critical service that's critical to our citizens, to our lives, that can impact lives, you know, that collaboration has to also happen at the national level.
Thank you. Peter?
I can speak a little bit to the Czech Republic. Well, first of all, we have certain regulation which sets the bar for those that are regulated, and now we have more regulated hospitals than there were before. So that's the start. Of course, there's something on a paper. It doesn't mean that everybody is doing it. So second is that the hospitals and the management, they should be aware that cybersecurity is their problem. The current state is not ideal, and there needs something to be done about it, because without their patronage, it's not going to happen. I think we moved a little bit. It's a little bit sad that it took all those attacks in the world, not just in Czech Republic, to bring the healthcare sector more into spotlight. And then, of course, they need outside help, because even if they are aware of everything and they really want to achieve something, it's sometimes difficult to do it alone. First of all, you need funding, obviously, not just for all the hardware and software, but especially for the people, because cybersecurity is especially about people. They have the skills and will to do something, and it was mentioned today that the workforce is scarce, so without proper funding, it will be difficult to change things. Also, they need some support, and I can speak for NUKIP that we are trying to provide them with all the support we can, and not only them, all our constituency. And we can hear right now that even NGOs and private companies, they realize that this is a serious issue, and they want to support them as well. So I think that's the complex approach that, in my eyes, should work, but we need to be persistent.
Thank you.
I will build on Klara's and Peter's ideas, and I will move from organizational perspective to personal perspective. So from organizations to people, because everything starts and ends with people. People are the entry point, how the cyber attacks are getting to the organizations. And here I would point two things, maybe two ideas. First one is to really improve the personal security hygiene. Because, for example, I can tell you my own example. 3 weeks ago, I was in US, I was on the airport, I was flying home, and I was, in a hurry because in 20 minutes I was supposed to have a call with the US government. I opened the computer and I couldn't do anything because through the whole screen there was like announcement. It looked like Windows announcement that my computer was attacked by a Trojan horse, and I couldn't get rid of it. I couldn't, just switch off it. I couldn't, even if I switched the computer and I switch it on, it was there. So it disabled me to work from the computer. I was lucky enough to have the phone, so I made the meeting online from my phone. And there was the telephone number. So half of the people, they would call to this telephone number, they would give access to the other party to approach the computer, and the data would be stolen. I was lucky enough that I recognized this is something which is not right. I came back to Czech Republic, I gave it to the IT department, and they dealt with the situation. But really the personal hygiene is one important thing, and the second is the zero trust rule. It means never trust, always verify. So cybersecurity really starts and ends with people.
I can perfectly agree with this, because that's exactly the experience in diplomatic work. I can confess that attacks in general, when we discuss with other colleagues, usually are not in time when you are free and you can solve it. It's, if it is really sophisticated attack, it's usually in the time you are in a hurry. You have to prepare the material for your minister. Minister is nervous, he needs it immediately. You have to do it very quickly, and that's the moment you are not so aware of the security, and you can click something which then will have a big consequences. But as Peter mentioned, all the system, and Klara mentioned it as well. It's what would be the recipe how we can move on is to be honest, and we are again in the trust. If it happens, it's necessary to inform the qualified people and start to solve it. Here we still are in a problem that if my house is robbed, I'm immediately call police because it's unjust. If my computer is attacked, then some people still feel to be ashamed and try to solve it themselves. That's not the way. That's really about the trust and to solve it. We know it. It's that it could happen to everyone. So that's again our main point here, the trust. The next question we received is, will the project build on factor in the Oxford process and ensuing statement on international law protection, including for healthcare sector? Here I would like to apologize because when I wrote this, question, I realized that I forgotten for 2 points I wanted to mention in the beginning of this session. First one is the answer of this question, yes. As for Oxford manual, this is one of the reference documents which is mentioned in documents we have been prepared for this series of seminars. Second point I would like to say, and I forgot to say in the beginning, is that together with us, we also in this project cooperate very closely with International Committee of Red Cross with respectful of their area of competence. It means humanitarian law. So in this area, International Committee of Red Cross is a member of our group. The next question in our list is, how complex are the successful attacks which are used to attack hospitals now? Are hospitals in danger from basic known exploits?
I can talk a bit about one of the aspects, if I may, that we've seen our work sort of more globally. So I mentioned that we're doing a cyber incident tracer for healthcare project where we're really looking at the trends and the impact on individuals. And there's one particularly worrying trend from our perspective, which is, as we've collectively known, ransomware has been the key threat to the healthcare sector, and we know a little bit about the evolution of it. We know that ransomware started with holding your data for ransom until you paid. Then we've seen the double extortion, which is holding your data to ransom and exfiltrating the information. However, we have a new evolution where the attacker doesn't only hold it for a ransom, exfiltrates it, but they also contact the individual victim of the attack. So your hospital is held ransomware, but the actor also contacts you as an individual victim of this attack. So not only you are deprived of the access to this critical service, but you are also personally traumatized by the fact that your information was access released, and that you are also asked to pay ransomware for this data. And very recently we saw sort of the fourth layer of ransomware attacks, where we have the ransomware until you pay, the exfiltration, the contacting the victim, and at the end, the victim is being DDoSed until they pay. And so what this really means is that the individuals are re-victimized through these attacks, and really that individual impact is very serious. I mean, we see reports of increased psychological harms in individuals. We see that victims' lives are very seriously impacted. In the video, they mentioned the Vestamo attack, and I don't know if you've ever read the Wired magazine coverage of it. But imagine that you go to a therapist and you sort of tell them your secrets, your issues, your traumas, And then one day you receive a message that all of this is going to be released publicly. So really what we are forgetting in this conversation is really how these attacks impact individuals' life. I mean, we know that there are some individuals who had issues finding jobs, whose marriages have fallen apart, so we're really getting, through this evolved MO of these attackers, we're really getting so close to the individual, and the impact is really, really being serious. So that's one of the sort of the first trends I wanted to mention. The second trend I wanted to mention is that, again, we've looked at the numbers a bit. And obviously our data, we're releasing a beta version of the project, so we know the data is incomplete. But there's been all these initiatives globally, and I commend every single individual, government, company who's taken steps to improve the healthcare sector. But in the past year, we've seen 230 very serious attacks on healthcare sectors, and at least 75 of them were disruptive, which means disruption means I'm not talking about data breaches, which is an issue on its own, but really disrupting the services. So we see that despite the fact that we're taking these steps, we're having these conversations, that at the multinational and multilateral levels, we're having important conversations, that the industry is stepping up, we still continue to have the problem. So this was just a brief sort of global perspective, and really the perspective of the victims.
Well, if the organizations follow the best practice and the bar that said it shouldn't be so easy to be a victim of an attack and face it on like a serious scale. But the thing with the ransomware is it's a business plan. So the attackers, they pick the victim because it's easy to attack them, or it's easy enough. There is high probability that they will pay, and they have the budget, so they will pay enough so they can gain money. It's just a business plan. And I would like to say that if the hospitals are on a certain level, it won't be a good business plan to attack them anymore. And probably the attackers and non-state actors will move somewhere else where the business plan works better, which doesn't sound very happy, but I think it's the reality. But still, the state actors, they are different. If they want something, they don't care how difficult it is. They do not have a business plan. They have some aims. So even if the cyber criminals will move elsewhere, the hospitals still might be victims of state-sponsored attacks, and especially the data in hospitals and healthcare sector are quite valuable for them. So the challenges will be here even in the future.
Absolutely.
Maybe let me give you one concrete example about the sensitivity of healthcare data for individuals. And we are moving to Finland. You all know that when COVID started, the people had to change the way how they work, the way how they live, and the way how they socialize. And for many of them, it was not easy, and many people had to really seek for professional help, and they had to seek for a psychiatrist. And there was a case in Finland that the attackers, did a ransomware against the psychiatrist practice, and they went to this practice asking for money. It was refused, so they went then to the customers of the psychiatrist practice. They went to the patients, and this is something which really traumatized people, and it's just really bad.
And if I just may add one thing, we talked about why the healthcare sector is being attacked, and we know it's because they have to operate, so, they're more likely to pay the ransom. It's very sensitive data. It's a major embarrassment for a government not being able to protect a critical sector. But what again, we've seen through our analytical research, that there's also increased sort of trend in attacks towards pharmaceutical companies. And we see these attacks coming from nation-state actors because we know that is a sector of critical importance. This is one pandemic, there is going to be much more. So having, this being ahead of everyone else on research on medication, and this is not just this vaccine, this is something that will continue to be a sector of strategic importance. And so it's also interesting in the conversations we're having and the governments are having, if it's a pharmaceutical company, it's a private actor, what is the role of the government, in protecting these, are they critical infrastructure if they are a private company? So But really the trend is now moving beyond, you know, it's a sensitive data, it's a critical data we need to operate. It's becoming a real sort of a geopolitical competition on how different countries that are in this geopolitical competition will be able to protect their population when the next pandemic hits or when, you know, we have a supply chain crisis. So I think this is just reinforcing the importance of tackling this issue across the spectrum.
Absolutely. I think that as for healthcare sector, it's very sensitive, it's very vulnerable, and it has really big consequences. When we discuss the question of cyber attacks in international level, very often we discuss the international law, application of international law. We believe that international law applies online, offline, doesn't matter, but there is discussion about interpretation of the international law on cyberspace, and here the cyber attacks against hospitals are the threshold of the discussion. We know about the case from the last year in German hospital. As a consequence of cyber attack, there was one dead person. So that's some damages which are really already really very serious. So that's another reason why this is so important topic. Next question is. I think that the weakest link are people who use no default or simple password, am I right? Or most of latest ransomware attacks used any software bugs in old versions? That's the question from you. So it looks rather devoted to NewKip.
Yeah, it's definitely true that the regular user is quite often a weakest link, because if he's not educated, but he uses the ICT, then it's easiest way to target him. And we can see it in the statistics that the phishing and spear phishing is the most common vector of the attack. And it's logical because it's against the regular users. So when we mentioned the complex approach in the hospitals, it goes from top management all the way down, when even the medical personnel that's on the battle line, let's say, they are using the ICT, all of them. So they need to be aware of a cyber hygiene, and they should go regularly through the education. It doesn't have to be very long. It has to be basics. Just they need to know. It's not only about the passwords. It's how we use emails, personal, private, and much more. And what was the second part of the question, please?
Pardon?
There was a second part of the question.
I have no this question here anymore.
Okay.
But the point was mainly the role of passwords in general. So I think that you answered it. So sorry for.
Maybe I can also give a quick comment. Maybe one way could be to go passwordless, because at the moment we have also other possibilities like a PIN code, fingerprints, or face recognition.
I would like to thank the organizers. The second part of the question is, are most or latest ransomware attacks used in any software bugs in old versions?
Okay, I'm not a technician, so I'm not in a position to answer that clearly. If my colleagues
I have
maybe.
one insight into that. What I was told by our technician colleagues, that the successful attacks, for example, at least in Czech Republic and in other countries made against hospitals, they were successful and they were made on-prem, on-premise. So.
Okay, next question. Given I am a director of average Czech hospital, what should be my first step to protect my hospital from cyber harm?
I mean, the golden rule is, you know, you can't protect what you don't see or what you don't know. And I know the legacy, you know, and I'm trying to think about what the shadow IT and the legacy IT, sorry, it's the shadow IT, has been a real issue in the medical sector. So, I mean, I think really the awareness of you know, what's there to protect is the golden rule. But I also think this is not, and it's been said, you know, for the past 10 years, this is not a cybersecurity, this is a risk management issue, like is any, you manage it as any other risk you have, with the realization that we're talking about human lives at the end of the chain here. So I think these are the two golden rules that generally apply. And I also think that there is so many resources out there, and a lot of times it's the NGOs that provide a lot of free resources. There is a lot of the industry that provides free resources. It's also sort of to the community to be resourceful and go think about where, okay, if I'm not happy with the budget I'm getting, where can I get help elsewhere? And it really goes into the trust issue. From our work with the healthcare sector, we've seen that all these hospitals came to us asking for assistance, and they were like, well, what do we pay? And we said, well, no, we provide this as a free service because we have these volunteers. And there's a huge surprise and sort of distrust in it, saying, well, if it's for free, it can't be good. But we said, no, we're giving you, the 5 top, cybersecurity companies and their expertise at your disposal. And so really it goes into the trust that lots of times the NGO sector and even the private sector, they are not seen as a partner in increasing that resilience. But again, it's we have to build that trust through initiatives like this, but it really goes into that. So, thinking about the resources that are out there is also important, and being entrepreneurial, and into how you think about securing what you now have, because that's the first thing you've done.
Thank you. Peter?
Okay, if you are a director and you are aware that cybersecurity is an issue and you have to do something about it, then that's a really good start. Then I think you need people that are educated, that are willing to work. So you should get some of those. It's not always expensive, but if you are a director, you are not an expert in cybersecurity. It's not the core of your job. So bring the right people that will strive for the cybersecurity, and then support them. And also go by example, because when we discuss the raising the awareness, then it's for everybody, even for the medical staff, and they have a lot of bureaucracy, so they will probably oppose of all those courses, and they have to have different passwords and so on. So maybe push back, support your staff, explain why it's important, not just do it because it's the rule, but try to explain and go by example. And if you are a director and you are aware of cybersecurity and you are standing behind people that are striving for it, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. And even act of cybersecurity in the Czech Republic could be very, very useful, because there are concrete roles in organizations as a cyber manager and so on, which can be, of course, it's devoted mainly to critical infrastructure, but can be used for anyone as a good guideline how to move. Do you agree with me?
Yes, definitely, and I just would like to add, don't be afraid to ask for help, because as we heard, there's a lot of help for free, very good one. Also, we are supporting our constituency primarily, but there is more for everybody on our website. So don't be afraid to ask, and there's a lot of organizations that will give you hands and help.
Exactly, don't be afraid and trust, that's the point. Next question is, do you think that the aggressive behavior of ransomware attackers will have bad consequences on their credibility? Do they still care? If I can allow myself to contribute to this discussion, my experience from the meetings among diplomatic community is that we distinguish two main types of attacks. One is really aggressive, to deter, to show that there are some so-called superior quality, just to discourage people, and they are very, very clear. There are a second type of attacks which are mainly based or focus on receiving data. They are very quiet, not the people behind would like to be non-visible as long as possible, so it depends on the type of the attack, and I can admit that there is even one sort, some sort of attack which is part of the first group, And sometimes we in international community, we received some manifestation attacks, some attack just to signal that somebody is here. So it's very easily to identify who is behind. It's just one of the steps to show, see, we have some ability. So that's my experience from diplomatic discussions. But I would like to give floor my guests.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak a bit about. I think there is aggressivity, and the reason why there is aggressivity is because there's no accountability. We know that the attacks continue, they're aggressive, they impact lives. But how much accountability we have seen on these attacks? So this is a main issue in the community that we see, is that there's countries harboring these groups, and these countries and their leaders are not being held accountable. We have also domestic avenues for victims to seek recourse and justice, but they are not used. I mean, how many indictments you have really seen for attacks to healthcare? We haven't seen that many. How many court cases you've seen where a victim could go to court and say, look, my right has been violated, my right to privacy, to physical security. So I think the key issue here is the word, accountability, and as long as that does not change, we will continue the aggressive behavior, and we are continuing to seeing that those limits of the aggressive behavior are being pushed regardless of the type of the attacker. Yes, some are to signal, but again, I think what we're risking here, if we don't bring that accountability, is that we will lose the trust in technology, and we will lose the trust in leadership and in the governments. They are supposed to protect us and protect the healthcare sector, and really we see this perpetuated sort of streams of attacks. And I think that when the attacks touch your private life, your integrity, I think people will be much less likely trust the technology in all the different walks of their life. And I think it's a real shame, because we'll not be able to unlock the potential of the technology can have for humanity. So if it's for signaling, if it's to pay back, if it's to show, or if it's to steal, I think what it really does, if you look at the sum of all these things, it's really undermining the trust that we need to use technology.
Thank you, Klara. I'm afraid time is passing very quickly. I would like to thank you for your questions. I really appreciate how many questions we received from you. Now, I would like to enjoy my possibility to give you the last question, and I would like to complete this meeting in a positive way. So I would like to kindly ask you about your hopes, your intention, your ideas, what you would like to do, what we can do together to improve the healthcare, the security of our healthcare sector. If I can start again from Klara.
Thank you. I think really there's a couple of key themes for me. One is that the decision makers and policy makers have to really focus on the human-centric equities in their policy making. By what I mean is, if you're writing a legislation, if you're a decision maker, they always have to balance, the national security, foreign policy, national economy. But while those are all important for the society, the key equity that should lead the decision-making around cybersecurity, especially healthcare, should be the human, should be the risk to human. And so my hope is that, there's so many voices from the governments, the industry, the NGO sector that are advocating for this, that I am really hoping that because of this increased attention, those human-centric equities will really take precedence over everything else. I'm also hopeful that the not-for-profit sector and industry are increasingly have a voice in the debate, including at the debates that used to be preserved for states. I think keeping the access to multi-stakeholder community, to diplomatic processes, to draw on their expertise, to draw on the visibility is very important. Again, there's been very positive signs, whether at GG and other processes, that there's been at least some exposure that has to continue. And really, my hope is also that, and the positive hope is that I think the technology is moving forward, and I really hope that that we will realize what we're risking if we don't secure the healthcare sector.
Thank you. Peter?
Cybersecurity is a complex issue or complex problem, not just in the healthcare sector, and we need a complex approach to address it. That's obvious, and I think this project is a very good example. Seeing us here sitting together, watching the problem from different perspective, and same for the workshop when we'll have different experts from different dimensions. So I think we are striving in a right way. Not just NUKE, but the whole community and even internationally. And I just hope that we will persist and we will keep it going in a future to reach our goal, and maybe then use the knowledge from the healthcare sector and expand it and use it also elsewhere, because the healthcare is not the only sector of the state or of the society where the cybersecurity matters. It's a layer that goes through all of those. So I hope that we'll expand it in the future, and I'm really happy for the project.
Thank you. Katerina?
My hope is that the project will be successful, that we will be able to bring the best experts and the best practitioners, that it will create impact, and it will be inspiration also for the other countries, so it will scale across the globe. And maybe I will finish with one proverb, which is something like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Thank you very much. If I can join myself to this positive waves, I would like to express that I see big progress in Czech Republic concerning the coordination of cybersecurity. Here I would like to express my respect to all cyber community here, and I hope that our project will be one that can contribute to this process as well. So I would like to thank you very much for your attention. I would like to thank people who follow us online. Thank you very much, and as we already announced, we would like to continue in these seminars concerning the protection of healthcare sector. So we would like to meet you, to be in touch with you in the future as well. Thank you very much.